It was in the fourth quarter of the year 2016 when I traveled around my own country, when I discovered that there is a lot of history, amongst other things, around the issue of names, specifically of certain streets, of certain towns, of certain cities. It's something I was never aware of until I did a bit of traveling around South Africa. I've traveled extensively. Just to give a bit of context, my first adventure was Cape to Cairo by public transport as part of celebrating my 30th birthday. Subsequent to that, I did Central Africa, again by public transport, and then I did West Africa, again by public transport. And as you can imagine, some of the countries that I traveled through are failed states. One thing I can tell you is that you do not go to bed in a fully functioning country and then wake up the following day and you are in a failed state. It simply does not work that way. What you have is a gradual decline right in front of your eyes. When I spoke to the locals, that's one thing they said, all of them. It's the gradual decline that you see in front of your eyes every single day. And you keep on being hopeful. And hopeful, and hopeful, until one day you wake up in a failed state. And guess what? Once you become a failed state, you are never coming out. It takes generations. You are never going to be a failed state today, and by June of next year, poof, you are out of it. It just does not work that way. So the focus will always be preventing your country from becoming a failed state. Thank you. And one of the questions I asked, by the way, in the book is South Africa already a failed state? Right? I can tell you now the answer is no. But we should be very, very concerned. The book essentially has got three parts. I'm dealing with the issue of names, I'm dealing with power brokers, and there's a part where I'm dealing with reflections. Issue of names. As I said, it fascinates me, the issue of how a certain street will be named after a specific individual or a certain town after a certain general, as an example. One thing though that I say in the book is, for me it doesn't make sense for us to obsess about names of streets, of towns, of cities. You know why? Because as a country we don't even have a name. What we have is a geographic location or location. We are on the southern tip of the African continent, and that is our name. If you remember, Namibia used to be called Southwest Africa. Why? Because that is geographic location. It's located on the southwestern part of the African continent. That's why it was called Southwest Africa. But when they got their independence, they renamed it Namibia. That's it. Then you can start obsessing about other stuff. But the foundation should be the name of the country. Otherwise, this stuff is frivolous. It's frivolous. Yesterday, I drove through from Becha to here. I was fascinated that all the way, I never saw a single signage saying Cuba. Never, not even once. Same thing with Grahamstown. For years now, it's been changed officially to Makanda, but on the N2, you see Grahamstown. So what was the deal all about? Why are we spending so much time on N4 and yet right on the N2, main highway, it still says Grahamstown. So what's the point? What was the point all about? Why? Why are we obsessing about that? There it is, Grahamstown. Go and drive it. I'll be driving there tomorrow. Boom, Grahamstown. So what's the obsession all about? For me, the issue of names is very simple. Focus on the issue of the name of the country first. That gives context, that gives the foundation. Then the rest can follow. Right? And then, as I said, I deal with the issue of power brokers and reflections. On the introduction, I do state, by the way, that this book differs in other books, that it covers a wide variety of issues. And I'm reading from the book. The issue of all the new names is not the only topical issue in Mzansi, of course. In fact, our country is complex. And as such, trying to deal with these challenges means, amongst other things, that you have to cover a lot of themes and subjects. So the various parts of this book might feel totally different from each other, because that is exactly how our country is in its true sense. You cross the road from Sentin to Alexandra, or vice versa, and it looks and it feels like you're in a different country altogether. Within half an hour of leaving the informal settlements of Khayelitsha, you are in multi-million rand wine farms of Stellenbosch. You read about multi-million rand deals, and in the same newspaper there's a story about how the substantial part of the population lives below the poverty line. We are a complex country partly because our past is complex and convoluted. We are the only country in sub-Saharan Africa that had two waves of independence. In 1910, we became a self-governing state of the British Empire called the Union of South Africa. And in 1961, we became a fully sovereign state called the Republic of South Africa. In both these instances, the minority of population continued being in power, and this was so for more than 8 decades. This therefore means there was a third wave of independence, freedom for all, in 1994. We as people of this land are not a product of just one thing or another. We are a product of everything and more. Even victors are victims to an extent. You might have your riches, but you have no peace of mind. You have to constantly and consistently watch your back, just in case. Victims, on the other hand, can claim victories of some sort. That first person in the family to get a university degree, or buy a car, or buy product in the suburb, or buy property in the suburbs, as an example. These are often highlighted as a strong case of triumph of the human spirit, but in essence, it is, I strongly feel, victims of the system claiming some sort of victory. So that is my book. It makes you kind of uncomfortable, and that is it. And that is why I was so happy that there was this conversation just before me. I really think moving forward, and now I'm concluding so that we can just have more of an engagement more than anything else. People always ask me, so what must we do here? What can I do? What must I do? There are a couple of things that we can do now. Now this is just part of problem solving. Because it's always easy to talk about problems. You know, anybody can say, but this is a problem, this is a problem, and this is a problem. What must we do? Number one, we must be patriots, which means we must put the country first. We must not be obsessed with personalities. This is part of the problem in this country. We are obsessed with personalities. There are some holy cows. There are certain people who just could not do no wrong. And there are certain individuals who are forever doing everything in a wrong way. We must be patriots. We must talk about everything, including the arms deal. Think about it rationally. In the mid-1990s, why did we have an arms deal? Let us for a split second ignore or not talk about the alleged fraud, corruption associated with the deal. But let's just talk about the deal itself. Why did we have a deal? Out of all the challenges facing this country in the mid-1990s, how do you explain that the biggest chunk, the first big deal signed by the new government for the people, by the people, was to buy arms? How do you explain that as a South African? But we do not want to have that conversation. You know why? Because it will mean we have to question a certain administration now. And because we are not patriots, we do not want to put the country first. Then we'll push back. No. Yeah, let's talk about other things. State capture. Of course we can talk about state capture. But one of the questions I asked is, and it's a chapter on its own, when was the state captured? It's a question. When was the state captured? When was the state captured? There's a book by, of course you can read my book, and I'll urge you to do. Once you've read my book, you can read a book titled ANC Billionaires by Peter Tutolt. Interesting stuff. Those are the type of conversations we need to have. And that is why I'm so happy that we had that conversation before I came through here. part of the conversation we need to have. So that's the first thing. We must be patriots. We must put the country first. We must always put the country first. We must not be obsessed with personalities. Not at all. Not at all. And that is the problem. We obsess about personalities where we will defend the undefendable because it's a certain individual. And another individual, no. It's always his problem. It's always he's led us to this. We must be patriots. So that's the first thing. Second thing is do your own research. Of course, watch the news on TV, listen to radio, great. But also do your own research. That is very important. Because the media also has got its own agenda. You must always do your own research. Let it swirl around your head. Yeah, watch the news, listen to radio, but just think it through as an adult. Take away the emotions, just think it through. Third, and this is very important, we must speak up. We must speak up. This is very important. We must speak up. We're in this mess because we just want to speak in those safe spaces. Those safe spaces around family and friends when you're having a pride. It's a safe space, right? It's safe. But we must speak up. As I said, I've met people who live now in failed states, and one of the things they say, and this always haunts me, is that they saw it happening in front of their eyes and they kept quiet. You don't want to be part of that generation, right? You don't want to lie on your deathbed one day and you say, I should have spoken up, but I just did not, for whatever reason. We owe it to our children, we owe it to our grandchildren, we owe it to future generations to speak up. Finally, we need decisive leadership. We need leadership with balls. We need decisions to be taken. Part of the issue that we're dealing with is this issue of land that Tembeka and Putum were talking about. We need to deal with that issue. Look what happened in Zimbabwe when ZANU-PF felt, we might lose power now. What was their trump card? And all hell broke loose. In conclusion, I once had a conversation. It was in the early 2000s. It was a conference in Sun City. And I spoke to these two Zimbabwean guys. Just at that time, you could just feel a sense of, in Zimbabwe, things were not going well. These two Zimbabwean guys said to me, Sihle, in the early 1980s, when Zambia was going through hell, they, Zimbabweans, used to look across the Zambezi River and say, we are Zimbabweans. Whatever is happening in that country called Zambia will never, ever, ever happen in our country called Zimbabwe. I don't have to tell you what happened in Zimbabwe, right? So if something can happen in one country, it can easily happen in another. If something can happen in one family, it can easily happen in your own family. So we must have that in mind, South Africans. Let us speak up, let us be patriots. Let us not allow our country to go down the drain purely because we are obsessed with a comfort zone. You do not want one day to look back and say, I should have spoken up. I thank you.